This video is an elaboration on the problem of the week number 5, because I fear that though I have a lot of words that make no sense into my strategy and what I did. So this is ABC at the top and then ABC, D, E, F to equal 1, 2, 3, 4. And the question asks like how many sets of them could Eliana, I think is her name, make. So the way I went about this was, at first I didn't think that there were a lot of sets. I was like, okay, there's a lot of conditions to satisfy, like it's not gonna work. But then I started, like through a sequence of problems, I just chose randomly like 622. And then I thought, wow, there's actually a lot of numbers that you do 1, 2, 3, 4 minus, and then your top number and the bottom number, there's a lot of them that qualify the condition. So at first I messed up in that the 600s, I saw that most of the 600 numbers would need another 600 number to equal 1, 2, 3, 4. And A has to be greater than D, and 6 and 6 are equal. So I, from there, was like, okay, let me think about the last number. So I decided that the C, and the F numbers were really significant with all numbers, because that's what you add first. At least when I learned addition, you start at the end number. So I said, okay, that would be the easiest way to say C can never be these numbers, or C can always be these numbers, because no matter what the beginning ones are, if you start from the third row, you're arguably always going to get like this the same, you know. So for example, like if you always put a 1 in the C spot, the F always has to be a 3 to give you the 4. And in that case, C can never be 1, because 1 is less than 3, if that makes any sense. Same thing with 2. So because of that, I did like a series of, I did like a test where I just chose randomly. I decided like to keep it practical. I would not too practical, to make it as clear as possible, make it the same set, like the same numbers. So they both start with 8, 8, and then just change the third number, just to test my strategy of the third one and not have to like have any other like confounding variables. So I did 887, 888, 889, like all the way with the third number being 0 to 9. And from there I saw that 2 does not work, 5 does not work, 6 does not work, 0 obviously does not work, and 7 does not work. The only ones that worked were 8, 9, and 3 worked. So that was my conclusion there. But again, that's just one set. I wanted to test it again. So from there, I did it again, but this time in my strategy, I changed the last number again, but I also made the first number a set from like 1 through 9. And I obviously found like, I found that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 did not work, like to start as A. Like A could not be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because the subsequent number was going to be greater than that one. And then then I wanted to eliminate all 6s, but then I was like, no, you can't eliminate all 6s, because once you get to like 670s, it's 5. Like the number, the ABCD is a 5, not a 6, how with the other ones. So I did another test to find out which 6s qualify and which 6s do not. And then in the end, I found what numbers. So A, I found could not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then some 6s. But then C was the most important one, and that's the one I found it cannot be 1, 2, 0, or 5, 6, 7. I did multiple tests, and I saw that my conclusions for C had to have been 3, 8, or 9 in order to work. But then I was a little confused on the middle numbers, do those matter? And I found that they like, I did a test with 2s. 2s is a relatively low number, and it worked. So I came to the conclusion that the first and the third numbers were the most important. But then I was not confused, but then I was like, okay, I have all of this information, but I know what can and can't, but that still doesn't give me how many 6 numbers she can make. So I tried, but I found that the only way, at least these were my best strategies to come up with a number. I was not going to Google the answer, obviously. So from there, I made a list of conclusions where I eliminated, if there's 999 possible numbers for A, B, C, and D, E, F, I found that by eliminating all the numbers that, like, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I found that at least 329 numbers for the 999 options cannot work. Like, they cannot work. So then I decided in my head, when you flip it, for example, if we start the top with like the ones that do work at the top, starting with 5, 6, or starting with a few 6s, 7s, and 8s, if you make D 9, 8, 7, and some of the 6s, then the A is going to be less than. So once you flip it, it's kind of the same, if that makes sense. That's what I kind of tried explaining, but I don't think that made accurate sense. So at least 329 numbers from the ABC do not work. Therefore, also at least 329 numbers for the bottom one do not work, because whatever works as the top row cannot work at as the bottom row. Because if something starting with an 8 works for A, well, if you make that A 8 work or stand for D, it's not going to work, because the A is going to be less than 8, if that makes sense. So in the end, I could not find an exact number for how many 6 tuples worked, but I did really take a lot of time to find strategies and figure out what numbers can and cannot work. So I hope that this cleared it, made more sense than what I wrote here.